All right. Well, hi, everyone. This is Ryan Anderson, the Sustainable Communities Manager for the IPM Institute of North America. We're an environmental nonprofit based out of Madison, Wisconsin. And our mission is to advance sustainability in agriculture and communities through market mechanisms based in integrated pest management. This is another pest defense interview that we're doing. It's sponsored by or funded, I should say, by the North Central IPM Center through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And we also have a couple of sponsors like PestBoss as well as Xcluder. Today, we're very excited to interview Janet Hurley, who is the Extension Program Specialist at the University of Texas A&M. And she runs the statewide school IPM program for the entire state of Texas. So a lot of experience enforcing school IPM statewide. And we're very excited to have Janet because we're talking about a pretty comprehensive school IPM policy, probably one of the most comprehensive that we're going to interview. So Janet, thank you for joining us. And I just want to start off with the question of how do you aid staff in the understanding of laws and regulations that guide IPM in schools?
Well, Ryan, thank you for having me, and thanks Pest Defense and USDA NIFA and North Central IPM Center for having me talk about my passion, school IPM, or really my passion about integrated pest management. But to your question about educating about the laws and the rules, since I was hired in 2001, my primary role for AgriLife Extension, because we are an outreach branch, is to work with our Department of Ag or the regulatory agencies and our school districts to understand what is required for our school IPM rules, but also what is IPM, and then how do you manage your campuses successfully to be pest and pesticide free as best as possible in a southern state.
Great. And a lot of this has been regulated by a regulatory agency through the 1991 school IPM law. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what happened, and it's kind of a very interesting story, is, as I joke with everybody, when I was a kid back in school in the early 70s, if you had lice, it was no big deal. It was a rite of passage. However, as we became more urbanized, especially in the 80s, the response to taking care of head lice wasn't treating the child. It was unfortunately trying to treat a school campus. In Texas, it was pretty bad. They treated a campus with 2 ag chemicals, lindane and toxaphene, making the building hot, prompting a parent who became a representative to go to Austin and put forth a bill in 1991 where integrated pest management was nothing. We were just getting started on that bandwagon, but people were like, what? So it became law because of some trading, and because this representative was very, very adamant, and he was a Republican, adamant about making sure that no parent ever went through this again. The law was passed in 91. Schools had to stop adopting a program in 1995, and I was hired in 2001 under an EPA grant to really help get this program going, because there is so many different parts to our law and our rule. And when I came on, I'll just never forget this, y'all. We require 6 hours of training for our IPM coordinators. I went to my first training, and I remember my 2 colleagues, Dr. Don Renchie and Dr. Mike Merchant. They did the training. I'm there and we get done, and they're like, so what do you think? And I was like, oh my heavens, 6 hours, pat these guys on the back and see you later, bye? I don't know how they run an IPM program and run custodial and the buses and And it was at that point when I started getting tapped into what really was IPM and EPA's ideas and indoor air quality that we did start networking and starting to promote why it's so important for training when it comes to IPM and that peer relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit because you mentioned that this law is pretty extensive, and I have a list of things. And you can just correct me if I missed anything or if I got it wrong. So the ruling says that it's stipulated that postings after pesticide applications on school grounds must be left for 48 hours. It provided mixing requirements, ensured monitoring and non-chemical control measures were used prior to chemical control, and stated that green category pesticides, which are reduced risk pesticides, must be used. And so am I missing anything in that description? Any big?
Kinda.
Oh.
The first sentence. So I'm posting.
Mhm.
Since the 80s, our state has had indoor posting 48 hours forever. I mean, 80s is forever in my world. Okay. This is not something that was new created. School IPM just said, okay, if you're going to do something indoors, all building occupants, and it's not just schools. I mean, we cover hotels, motel lodges, food processing, apartments, nursing homes, childcare. All of those are considered environments in which the public must know 48 hours in advance if you're going to come in and make a treatment. That's the first. When we updated our school IPM rules in 07 through 09, because it was a departmental shift and a couple of other things, we added outdoor posting. Outdoor posting goes up at the time of application. And then based on, are you green, yellow, or red? Green category means these are generally coming out of EPA category 4, which is mildly non-toxic. They've changed the wording on that category, but we consider them least toxic to humans and to others. That green category, as long as no students are present, it can go out and students can come back in afterwards because they're all generally all low impact. Yellow category means they don't meet that green active ingredient. They shift over into category 3 of EPA, and there that caution signal word says sign goes up. It stays up for the entire time you make the application and then must remain up for 4 hours afterwards, and no students can be present. Then we have red. Red's the easiest one. When I first started, it wasn't as easy, but now it's real easy. If you've got a warning or danger signal word, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a bug spray that you bought off of a shelf at the home hardware store, or if it's a herbicide or whatever. It's got warning or danger. It is considered red. It requires prior approval from the coordinator and the applicator and paperwork. And then you got to post and keep it up for 8 hours and keep kids out. The reason I bring that distinction up is there's a couple of brands of wasp killer that you can buy at the store that's got the warning label. And I'm like, no, here's the green one. And yes, you can find that one at the store, but that one's generally further down on the shelf.
Mhm.
So, I mean, 3/4 of my job has been teaching people the difference between green products and that methodology, as you guys know, under sustainability, and making the right choices. Because yes, we do say preferential use to non-chemical, least toxic pesticides and non-chemical control measures. For instance, this is August. August in the South, when there's been no rain, means we have problems with ants and roaches because they will come in. I mean, I have joked for years. Really, you're seeing American roaches in your schools, and it's okay, their backs up. They're coming in seeking water. They want the water. Ants are coming in. Where are we finding them? Oh, we're finding them in kitchens and areas where there's water. Again, they're finding water. So it's not the chemical, it's part of it. Now let's talk about what you have done in the past outdoors.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you wanted questions about outdoors? Sorry. I just had one question for you for clarification. So you said the red, yellow, and green categories. Is there like a database that Texas A&M or the state has for it, or they have to know by themselves how to figure out?
Oh, this is where Janet got to create a whole fact sheet on it.
Okay.
And the sad part is it's very hard for me to it's not an easy database. I mean, for years, well, I wish the manufacturers, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. We're the only state that does green, yellow, red.
Mhm.
So I train on actives. But this is also important. We don't do enough. We, meaning educators, don't do enough on explaining what are these products, how do they work, why do they work, and why they're better or worse. Because when you're trying to explain, and I'm going to go outside of my network, but this is because of my job. If I've got a parent that's trying to deal with cockroaches at home and they're going to the store and they're buying blah, 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 bug killer, we all know that that's a pyrethroid.
Yep.
There's resistance. And yet the kid could be bringing the cockroaches in a backpack to school. Pest control is trying to do something else. And it could be counterintuitive. So it's really important when we do our training, we talk about, all right, why are baits so important? Why, when you're baiting for ants, is it so important? Because I joke with everybody, so you guys understand this. Ants are three-year-old little girls that don't like to eat. Okay, because if they're fire ants, they only eat a corn. So they like Fritos. If I'm a carpenter ant, I prefer protein. So a lot of their baits are made with proteins that are attractive to them. If I'm a sweet feeding ant, those same baits, they're all maybe the same active ingredient, but it's what they were using as the additive to attract the ant to go get it, take it back to the mound, feed the queen and the brood, because that's how you kill ants. So, I mean, do you see, this is why our training is so in-depth. Yes, our state says that they have to get 6 hours. It's an 8-hour day with us. And then to back it up, I come back with a second day. And then we talk about pest 4. Oh, this is how you deal with ants. Oh, this is how you deal with roaches. Or this is how you deal with rats. Or just IPM principles, just these simple thing of door sweeps, cleaning up, teachers maintaining the break rooms, their classrooms, all of that stuff. That's part of our rule, that when they come in to inspect and they say, coordinator, have you been trained? Do you have your policy? All right, what are you using? Where are you using it? Are you educating? Are you monitoring? It's a 63-point question when our Department of Ag comes in and does an inspect. And they have to do that once every 5 years at a school district.
Yeah, that's perfect segue to the inspections, because as you mentioned, every school has to be inspected every 5 years within Texas. And I'm interested, for those inspections, if they find non-compliance, what action is taken to ensure that the schools become compliant again to Texas's school IPM?
So I can tell you how many schools are non-compliant because I get the report every year. It's something the Department of Ag actually publishes on their website as well when they do their quarterly advisory committees. So the law says, and this is written in our occupations code, that based on if everything is going correctly, in other words, they come in, they do your 63-point inspection and you have no misses, then you are inspected once every 5 years. This is based on roughly numbers. 1,026 school districts, X amount of inspectors. roughly, if we do it, that gets us 20% of the schools each year, each fiscal year. So that's where it comes from. Now, a lot of things that they see in non-compliance, they don't have the justification forms for them using yellow or red category products. Some of it is really a violation. I mean, when I see that they still don't have an IPM coordinator, and I'm like 30 years down, we don't have that. They might get a little bit more force. What the state says is when we come in and we do the inspection, what we are going to do is we'll give you 6 months, 8 months, a year, depending on what your non-compliance is. Then we come back and re-inspect. If we come back and re-inspect, and it depends, if it's just a paperwork thing, no big deal. If it's something where they actually did a misapplication based on a label, that's a whole different animal. But in the last 10 years, the data I have is 2. Okay. I mean, so, and those were fines.
Mhm.
And they will issue a fine. They don't have a problem, but we're trying not to work with them. And a lot of it's turnover. Because if the superintendent's turned over, the maintenance people have turned over, and it's a smaller district where, you lose half the staff when you lose 3, then sometimes getting up to speed. This is not, covered in Superintendent's 101 because they're too busy figuring out finance, state testing, school security, all the other stuff. I mean, so it's an ongoing effort to re-educate year after year.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm interested on the re-education. So in 1991, it was first, and correct me if I'm wrong, is first under the IPM was under the control of the Texas Structural Control Board. And then it switched enforcement, I believe, was that 2006, 2007, the department?
2000. So the Structural Pest Control Board was a very small agency that was formed in the 70s based on some bad problems with structural pests. The Department of Ag said, look, we don't have the capacity, and regulatory and the legislature said we need to get people out there checking these pest control people because they're doing things like termite treatments in homes and they weren't doing it right. So they formed this agency. This agency had this responsibility to do structural pest control. They took it over. Well, when the mid 2000s were going on and we're trying to reduce government, well, here's this agency with 36 people that brings in some big bucks. We're going to move it over here that regulates everything else and put it over. But the response, the regulatory response, didn't roll back. What we did was when we moved things over, all right, we're moving from one regulatory to another. Let's tweak the few things, because in 1991, when you write the law for the first time and you're first, you have no idea what you're doing. I mean, we were literally throwing spitballs at a wall and, things. And as I got in, I was like, no, we need something better. Because again, if you're an inspector, the one thing any regulator, and this includes what we do in our own personal life, the posted speed limit is 55. Well, Mr. Ryan, you were doing 75 and a 55. Okay, that's evidence. It's the same thing. Do you have an IPM policy? Yes or no? So when we rewrote the rules, if you really look at them, there are a lot of yes and no questions. Okay, do you have a monitoring program? Either you do or you don't. Monitoring means I can prove evidence with a glue board. I've got a pest problem. It's not just Mrs. Jones calling me, telling me she's got ants in her classroom and I come running. Because that was the old way of doing things. Oh yeah, we'll send the pest control guy out and he'll spray your room. Well, nowadays with so many kids being asthmatic, and I even say on the botanical stuff, slow your roll. Don't be spraying in the room because you don't know who you might trigger for something. Whereas, okay, go in, clean up. Is there a way that they're getting in? Can you vacuum something up and then move forward? So that's really what the role of regulatory has been is, yes, they keep a pulse on what the schools are doing, but at the same time, this is how it rolls. The Department of Ag will go in and inspect a school. School is found in non-compliance. Then they're told, we really think you should reach out to Miss Hurley at AgriLife Extension. And I'll get these phone calls. Miss Hurley, the inspector was here and said, and depending on how the call goes, it's like, okay, do I need to get out and go visit them immediately to help them organize their program? Is it just they need to come to training? Is it a little bit of both? Because that's the part that I don't care who you talk to on the level of IPM implementation. That implementation part comes to interaction of human, because you've really got to talk through scenarios sometimes. Well, this is what's really going on, because you can't just address it as a blanket, because our state tried. We have tried to do blanketing of things, and it's like, no, we can't. I have to take it case by case, campus by campus.
Yeah. And I'm interested, staying on this topic of those inspections. I think it was either from Texas A&M or the state where they came out with a report of the survey of the Texas schools, and we saw that there was an increase between 2005 to 2016 in pyrethroid use and baseboard spraying. Do you have any theories for why we saw that increase? Was it change in management, more people surveyed?
No, actually, one, change in products.
Okay.
Two, use of product as a perimeter spray, because about that time that we saw that increase, we also saw an increase in a couple of different invasive ant species. One of them being the tawny crazy ant. And we sure didn't know back in 2016 what we were doing. Now we have to use something like fipronil. So it's more, pyrethroids were created to replace a lot of the organophosphates. There are those that in an older generation, they just moved over. I'm sure if we were to do it again, and I'm overdue, but I really don't want to go through IRB, I think you would see a change in product again, because some other green products actually have come up on the market. I mean, if you think about it, especially some from Rockwall Labs, they weren't really new. They were just coming on the market back then. They've been on the market almost a decade now. I mean, I've watched this market change and what people are using. It's very hard to document. Because on the structural side, we don't. Not like the ag side.
Yeah, I'm interested kind of in, so obviously you have this state school IPM training. Do you use any outside resources to kind of update your training, or outside resources to track some of these new products that are coming on the market?
Okay, outside resources to do my training. I mean, all right, Ryan, I'm not gonna belittle this, but I'm a kind of a smart human when it comes to IPM, so I'm always up to date. I go where my audience needs me. This comes from public health. In public health, we are taught to, you train what your audience needs, not what you need. So I have to constantly listen, and my listening comes from emails, phone calls, whatever's out there. What do they need to do their jobs better? So for training, day one, there is no variation. We have to train that curriculum no matter what. I can do it in my head, in my sleep, wherever. Day two is always CEU driven, but it's driven to support pest management professionals who do landscape, structural, and the school, all to come together and learn about different things. This year it's turf pests, bees, wasps, yellow jackets. We are doing modes of action because again, it's a passion of mine. So that's how I try to keep up with stuff. And as far as tracking, if there was 4 more of me, sure.
Mhm.
But I run a statewide program by myself. It is me, myself, and I. I have had very limited support in doing what I do, but I do it because it's needed and necessary. And yes, if we ever find the miracle database that we can use, great. But it's so hard and structural that it's not as easy as ag.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And this is a clarifying question for the school IPM law. Is the school IPM law strictly for state, or is it also for private schools too?
Okay, in Texas, we have a variety of schools. School IPM is for independent school districts. These are districts that get funding from the state. They have their own separate school board and stuff. Private? No, they're private. They do have to follow posting and notification stuff, but they don't have to follow all the other stuff. We have charter schools. Charter schools do fall under public, but not under the school IPM rules as of yet, because if we folded those in, that's another 900 schools on top of the 1,026. I mean, we are the second largest school system in the country.
Mhm.
I mean, but it's also when you talk to other states, they're like, yeah, but I was like, yeah, but some of y'all are county based, meaning that Western state in California, they have a lot of kids, but their districts are based on county, which helps make some of that number down. But simply, and I mean, 3/4 of my school districts are rural, but the biggest ones are all urban.
Mhm. Yeah. So you're not required to inspect these private and these charter schools, but are they able, if they wanted to, go to your IPM trainings and stuff
Oh,
like
our IPM trainings are open to everybody.
is open to everybody?
Everybody, unless the class fills up. And I can tell you, knocking on plastic wood, that I've never filled up a school IPM coordinator training in my career, ever.
Mhm.
And you would think with that many districts that need to be trained every 3 years, we would, but we don't,
Mhm.
because that's not where districts put their emphasis.
Mhm. Yeah. And if we talked about this a little bit before, but and I think I know the answer, but do you think this is the main reason that this IPM law and legislation is that it's effective, is that it's backed by the Department of Ag, or is there
There's
other
more to it. So
Yeah.
when we did, all right, so the unique thing about Texas and reason we went from the Structural Pest Control Board to the Department of Ag is this. We have this thing called the sunset rule. Sunset rule says that every state agency every 12 years or so must be reviewed by a committee that are appointed representatives and senators of both parties that look at every state agency, look at what they do, what are they doing, are the rules relevant, and move forward. Well, in 2007, when they were looking at the rules and looking at everything, school IPM came up because it's tied directly to. And through all of this, because it's an unfunded mandate, every representative looked up and went, for an unfunded mandate, we're doing the right thing and it's working. It's working. Over the years, a couple of things have come up, pollinator stuff, recent headlines about using herbicides. Politicians have gone, well, should we be protecting the schools? We bring this back up to them and go, well, no, this is what we're doing. And these are the reports. And they're like, we're already doing that. So once they see we're doing it, it's like, oh, we've got the buy-in. The problem is administrators, because their budgets keep getting thinner and thinner because other things are being added. I mean, when I started, I'm sorry, we didn't have to worry about active shooter. Okay, when I said keep the doors closed, I was really worrying about, drifters or grifters coming in, not something else. Now they're having to move their budgets from this to that. This is where we're finding, I mean, it's hard to justify getting a door sweep. Getting a door sweep, a $40 item that can keep out crickets, cockroaches, mice, rats, and anything else, because they need that budget money for something else. And this is where it's hard, and I'm trying to come up with different solutions. Because you really hope that there was a group out there that could help them.
Yeah, going on those different solutions, would there be any future changes that you would like, or additions that you'd like to see the school IPM law or implementation?
Well, what I would really like to see, and it's based off of that journal article in America that were recently published about our school health, and it has to do with the fact that the silos don't speak. It's extremely heartbreaking to know that, we do have all these different regulators. We've got our Department of Health people. We've got our code enforcement people. We've got water. We've got indoor air quality. We've got IPM. We've got all these different things, children's health, asthma, but we don't always embrace all of us together. And now more than ever, we need that. I mean, we saw it in COVID, and then it COVID's making its way back. But again, this is why it worked. Village. The school campus should be that village that we support, that we help. And not, the school people pushing people back, going, oh no, we can't use your help. Yeah, you can. You need us, and we need you.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were most of the questions that I want to get through. I think this is really insightful. Do you have any additional comments about Texas school IPM or just school IPM overall?
I will say this. I love what I do. I love our rule. I'm glad we have it, because I know it's protecting kids. I can say without a doubt, and I said this at the National Environmental Health Association a couple of weeks ago. I know that we made an impact. We went away from spraying baseboards in our schools to using more baits and more sound methods than just spraying to spray. Are we there yet? No. Do we still need to do more education? Heck yeah, but we need more education about a lot of things. But what I do tell everybody is don't be overwhelmed. Take it one step at a time, especially if you're a school district. I tell my coordinators all the time, change one teacher, one custodian, one parent, one whatever, one coworker. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to solve the problem. Because if you just start with one, it will grow to 2, then to 3, and then everybody's like, oh, hey, this is great.
Thank you, Janet. That was very insightful, and we'll use this information as we continue to assess different state IPM policies as they relate to schools. This interview and case study will be put up on Pest Defense for healthyschools.org in about a month or so. And we also have many other training resources on pest defense that you can look up for free. And we have other interviews as well. So this was Janet Hurley from Texas A&M, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ryan.